Let's get started with chapter 5. So the main thing we need to practice from chapter 5 is polar arrays, drawing arcs, and rotation, the rotation command, also the mirror command. So let's go ahead and play with polar array, even though we've already talked about it once, but this chapter actually uses it. So make sure my snap is on. Yeah. Make a line. All right, so it's not doing anything fancy. Just get to the usual position here. I'm gonna make a vertical line. Let's see about that long is good. Okay, doesn't have to be perfect or in a specific spot, at least not yet. So I just want to show you what you can do with the array. So again, like we talked about last time, select the object, press enter, and then choose a location where you want to array. If I choose the center, then it's going to spiral around it. So as you can see, so draw your vertical line, start the array command, which is right here. Oops. And then change the number of items. So up here, change it to 12. Number of rows, let's go ahead and change that to 3 rows. So as you can see, it created the original array, and then it went out 1, 2, 3. So this, when it says rows, is how many how many of these little line segments were going out. And then the distance between each line segment would be right here, the 7.5. This distance would be the distance between each line here. So this distance. Okay, so it should be in degrees. It's like an angle, right? All right. So another thing you can do is actually rotate. So if you want them all to rotate based off some point, you can hit the rotate command. And notice how they're all pointing upward now, even though they're still arrayed in a polar direction, but we've arrayed every single line segment. All right, so let me undo all that. So all we did was start with a line segment, do a polar array on it, start in the center, and then we change the items and rows, and then we mess with the rotation, just so you can see how you can rotate. Okay, now you can technically drag. Let's say we put it back how it was, 12 items. You could if I can grab it or not, drag out the original line segments, which essentially is just changing the distance, right? But anyway, let's move on to the arcs. So here's the arc command. We're going to use a 3-point, but you can use many different kinds, and you're going to need this for the mallet when you draw it. You're going to have to draw a perfect arc to help you out here. And the mirror command will help you so you don't have to do it twice. But let's start with something simple. Let's look at the 3-point arc. This time I'm going to give you specific points. I'm going to type it in the chat box here. All right, so the first point will be 9,6. Then 11.5, 5. Then 14,6. Okay. So pick the arc command, type in the first point. I said 9,6. And then use the pound sign to force another point. 11.5, 5. my art coming out already. And then the last point will be pound sign 14.6. There we go. So notice how it's oriented down here. Yours might be oriented. Oops. In a different direction, which is okay. You can always rotate this, which we'll talk about in a second. You guys have any issues using the arc command, 3-point arc command? All right, so let's use rotation. So rotation, exactly the way it sounds. You select an object. So rotate, select an object, enter. Then it asks you to select the base point. So like basically the axis you're going to be rotating on. So I'm going to choose currently I have the center turned on. So if you don't see those, turn on geometric center midpoint. So make sure that helps you out. That way you can choose the location. So let me start over. Make sure those are on and then start rotation, enter, choose a base point. So I'm going to choose down here. Now notice how down here it says copy or reference. So basically you can make it more of a move, or you could copy. You can rotate what you have and delete the original, which is kind of like a movement, or copy it and make a second one. So I'm rotating it here. Hit enter. Notice how it just moved it, right? Now if I hit rotate again, press enter, select my base point, but choose copy. So this time it's going to make, when I close it off, it made a copy. Hit spacebar just to repeat the command, enter, center point, copy. You make another rotational copy there. No big deal, right? So you can use rotation in different ways to help you out, just to shift things if it's a little off. It really depends, okay? Now, if you were to use the reference, let me move this up here. Let's move it somewhere out of the way. If I were to rotate, enter, pick my base point here, use a reference. That'll be just a move. It'll delete the original. Excuse me. Anyway, let's go ahead and undo this. Okay. Rotate this guy just so it's a little more centered. Not that it matters because it's not a perfect circle. But let's go ahead and try the mirror command. I'm going to draw a random line here below it, just so I know that's where I'm going to mirror off. Oops. So if I use the mirror command, choose the object, enter, and then it's going to have, basically wants you to choose a mirror line. So like, where is it going to mirror across? So it's kind of like on a, trying to think of an example. Like if you're to fold a piece of paper and you made a copy of it, right? So where's that fold going to happen? So it doesn't have to be right next to it. It could be way over here. So I'm going to put it right on this line. So now notice how I'm mirroring across this line. Same object, but I'm rotating off that reflection point. And then you can choose when you mirror to erase the original source. So if I choose yes, it deletes the original. Now, if I were to mirror across this line again, I can choose to keep it. Anyway, is there any questions on the rotation or mirror? So when you're doing stuff like this homework problem, let me show you. What I recommend for the new homework, notice how these little curves are here will be kind of tough to get just right. That'll be the hardest part of the problem, is making this. But once you have one side, you're going to want to mirror across this line. So find the center point, or perhaps start with like a cross section going straight through the middle, right? Using the measurements. So have this dashed line here and here. That way you know where you're drawing your arc. Once you've drawn it, you can you just mirror across that, if that makes sense. Okay. So that'll be the tough part. Let's see here. Yeah, they use a start, center, end, 3-point arc. It should work. And then on the measurement layer, make sure you have your shaded cross sections here in all these lines. Okay, so I'll expect your measurements, obviously the design, your name, and etc. on different layers. Guys, have any questions on chapter 5? Do you feel comfortable with the arc and mirror? Does it make sense? All right, guys. Well, start working on 5.5, and if you haven't finished 4 and 7, they're due today.